10 Miseria. Not because there are so many characters in House of the Dragon, but because each one plays a significant, even if insignificant, role in the plot. Miseria really stood out in Season 2 and started showing a ton of potential for Season 3. The former courtesan initially appeared to not have much to offer, but she ended up becoming a key player in all the scheming going on behind the scenes. This is primarily due to her remarkable ability to adapt and manipulate, eventually developing into a formidable whisper master. She definitely occupies a significant position by gathering and trading information. She's a spy who can sway important events, especially with her complicated connection to Rhaenyra starting in Episode 6 of Season 2. In addition, it is important to note that the majority of her choices are based on a desire for control over her own life and survival, making her character arc even more intriguing. 9 Rhaenys Targaryen. It's a shame that the queen who never was got taken out of the game so early, especially since she had the potential to really shine and show more of what she could do. Rhaenys Targaryen was a fan favorite, but she couldn't move up much because she was always more of a supporting character. Still, as the story progresses, you can see some of her depth, particularly when her backstory comes into play. One of the key things is that she doesn't seem all that fond of Rhaenyra, but still chooses to back her. She has the knowledge and experience to steer the right people through the chaos of war in Westeros. Her presence hit hard in big moments like Aegon II's coronation, where she brought all the power and fire you'd expect from a true Targaryen. Plus, her loyalty to her family and sense of justice make her a solid standout and keep her up there as one of the best characters in House of the Dragon. 8 Jacaerys Velaryon. Many people didn't see Jacaerys Jace Velaryon as a significant plot point, but that started to change last season. He proved to be an important part of the show now that Rhaenyra's son is older, more mature, and actively helping out in the Black Council. In Episode 5 of Season 2, for example, it's actually he who speaks with his mother, advising her on what to do. He might be a bastard, but he definitely pulls weight in the story, even if his presence is a little softer, quieter, and less in your face than the others. Some people draw parallels between him and Jon Snow, which is entirely reasonable in some ways. His actions demonstrate a strong ability to strike a balance between duty and empathy. From a young age, he's been stepping up to form alliances, and his knack for diplomacy makes it easy to believe he really is the right choice to be Rhaenyra's heir. On top of that, it's worth pointing out that their scenes are some of the best moments in the series. 7 Criston Cole. The truth is that the hatred Criston Cole receives is well-founded, but that's exactly what makes him such an interesting character. He was first introduced as this knight with integrity, but after his intimate relationship with Rhaenyra and her rejection, he completely flipped, becoming bitter, vengeful, and a perfect asset to Team Green. It may appear at first that he commits atrocities out of egotism, but let's be honest. Aegon II's victories would not have been possible without him before he became Hand of the King. Criston's absolutely vital to the political drama, and as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, he executes his plans with intense, sometimes over-the-top commitment. He was able to go deeper into his villainous arc in Season 2, demonstrating how far he will go to gain power. His decisions, often driven by wounded pride and a rigid sense of honor, make him impossible to ignore. So yes, it's easy to hate him, but it's also hard to look away. In the end, he's playing the game really well, and in a world like this, that's exactly the point. 6 Viserys Targaryen. Another addendum for the rank that, even after his death, was essential to the show. Since he was king and still endured all of his own pain, Viserys Targaryen has always been a complex character. He was always looking for a balance, but one that didn't come from Alicent's pressure or manipulation. In fact, it was more like he was designed with a weak personality. However, he was always likable, which made the audience feel for him. Despite this, he played a significant role in Rhaenyra's story because one of his most memorable actions during his reign was to upend patriarchal norms and place his daughter in the line of succession. He didn't win any awards, but he added a deeper, more personal side to the story. His choices, based on integrity and justice, are one of the most admirable things to see and serve as the culmination point of the entire story. To put it another way, House of the Dragon would not exist without him. 5 Aegon II Targaryen. In theory, Aegon II Targaryen is just a spoiled brat who succeeded in his training due to a misinterpretation on his mother's part. He ended up becoming someone you'd roll your eyes at, despite his initial reluctance to use power. However, over time, a very interesting layer began to be revealed, giving complexity to a character who could well begin to be seen in a different light. He is Alicent's most sensitive son, in fact more so than Helaena, and this is made clear in his crying scene in episode 2 of season 2. Even though he has made some poor decisions and has an irritating personality, the fact of the matter is that he has carried a lot on his shoulders since he was young. The problem is that all of this was just a consequence of external influences. Sitting on the Iron Throne is too difficult a job, so reaching a point of rebellion is understandable. Now that he knows his brother wants him dead, even though he is physically weak and shaken, there is a different potential that has been created to possibly explore in season 3. 5 Aegon II Targaryen. In theory, Aegon II Targaryen is just a spoiled brat who succeeded in his training due to a misinterpretation on his mother's part. He ended up becoming someone you'd roll your eyes at, despite his initial reluctance to use power. However, over time, a very interesting layer began to be revealed, giving complexity to a character who could well begin to be seen in a different light. He is Alicent's most sensitive son, in fact more so than Helaena, and this is made clear in his crying scene in episode 2 of season 2. Even though he has made some poor decisions and has an irritating personality, the fact of the matter is that he has carried a lot on his shoulders since he was young. The problem is that all of this was just a consequence of external influences. Sitting on the Iron Throne is too difficult a job, so reaching a point of rebellion is understandable. Now that he knows his brother wants him dead, even though he is physically weak and shaken, there is a different potential that has been created to possibly explore in season 3. 4 Aemon Targaryen. Aemon Targaryen is probably the most well-developed character in House of the Dragon. From the very beginning, we are shown why he is the way he is and how he feels, which has consequences that continue to this day and are explained in detail. He is also the character with the most depth. He has managed to turn insecurity into his greatest strength, and that is admirable. It would be a mistake to ignore the extent of his courage and determination, even though he is not the most moral character, who actually is. While still a child, he managed to claim Vhagar, altered his position within House Targaryen, and his rivalry with Lucerys and Jacaerys remained the trigger that fueled the political tensions in the plot. Because his story is so relatable, it's easy to identify with him when you still see him in very vulnerable moments. Consequently, it also makes him great and deserving of favoritism. He is the center of attention wherever he goes, whether it's because of his mysterious persona or his eloquent speeches. He is the kind of villain that series viewers enjoy watching. It is even possible to support him in some way at times. 3 Alicent Hightower. House of the Dragon has its controversial characters and its nice ones. Alicent Hightower is a hate figure, though perhaps not to the extent of Criston Cole. From an early age, she was influenced by Otto's ambitions. Nothing more than a pawn. So the transformation of her friendship with Rhaenyra becomes a central driving force for her individual plot, but one that is portrayed in depth by showing her internal struggles between duty, loyalty and power. She is possibly the most multifaceted character in the show. It's a little easier to like her at times, but that changes right away. Although Alicent's decisions are frequently influenced by a combination of personal conviction and external manipulation, they significantly contribute to the story's growing tension. If her children help shape everything with their attitudes, she then shapes them in an even greater way. Season 2, however, reverses this, and her reaction is curious to see, showing a more human and sensitive character, especially in episode 7. However, her construction can seem a little messy, as if there is a very strong duality and a mystery that is never unraveled. In contrast, her high ranking is due to her complex personality in the Westerosian setting. 2 Targaryen Daemon. Many people's favorite character basically has a morally gray personality, and that's what makes him so special. Daemon Targaryen is always charismatic despite being brave, bold, arrogant, and impulsive. His storyline in the series is characterized by a never-ending struggle for power and recognition, frequently in conflict with King Viserys, his brother. Overall, he is undoubtedly a man of contradictions who combines a number of things that immediately affect the viewer, who believes him to be even the most sensible in a wartime setting. Although his arc suffered somewhat in Season 2, it also placed him in a more prominent position for House of the Dragon's fate. He hadn't been the one who believed in things the most up until that point, but Harrenhal's delusions and visions forced him to undergo a transformation to initiate something that would have a significant impact on even the arcs of other characters. Seeing him kneel and recognize Rhaenyra, once and for all, as the true queen of Westeros, is also one of the most beautiful and symbolic things in his journey of evolution. 1 Targaryen Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra Targaryen is the main character in House of the Dragon, but that is not the only reason she is at the top of the list. The book has a lot of characters. She is shown to be destined to be a natural force from a young age, and even her failures over time do not change that. She is the epicenter of political and family disputes and is tested almost all of the time, either by others or by herself. It wasn't so difficult to take a position that was rightfully hers, but how many times have we seen her want to avoid a clash in a world where everyone is capable of anything for the Iron Throne? However, experiencing these occurrences elevated her to the status of a queen, demonstrating that giving up was not an option. But best of all, unlike a protagonist who is 100% strong, fearless, and even feared by many, she has flaws. She has this humanity from the beginning, which helps make her the best character in the series. She stands out as the perfect balance and the result of a path that naturally has to have its ups and downs because the plot is about a war and there must be very relevant figures within it, especially in terms of leadership. Rhaenyra is not perfect, but neither is she like her father. People are supporting her not just because she has rights, but also because she is a strong character.